use NetBeans IDE 7.1 with RichFaces 4.1.0 final. And this includes how to add the library to NetBeans so that you can use it. So first thing, I'm going to create a new project. I'm going to select a web project. I'm going to accept the defaults. I'm going to add Java server faces. When we go here, we'll see that there's RichFaces listed, but it's not available to us yet. So we're going to have to create the library. So we'll call the library RichFaces 4.1.0 final. And we're going to start adding the components. So as you can see in the background, it tells us what we need to actually add. So first thing, I'm going to add the libraries that it needs to work. So first thing we're going to do is I'm going to take advantage of the fact that I have a Maven repository located on my machine, and I'm going to add some of the parts from here. So the first one I'm going to add is Guava. So that's in a Google project. It requires Guava RO8. Notice in here that I also have the sources in JavaDocs, so we're going to add those as well so that we have code completion and we can actually navigate to the source code should we need to. I'll add the JavaDocs. Alright, next thing, we're going to add, we'll go back, we're going to go to SourceForge. So let's go to Net SourceForge, CSS parser. Look at the CSS parser. I also see that there are sources available for this, so we'll add those in as well. And the last dependency that we require for the RichFaces to work is we need the SAC library, which is part of the W3C consortium. We're going to use version 1.3, and we'll add those sources in as well. Finally, we're going to add the RichFaces libraries themselves. So we're going to go back to org, RichFaces, core. We're going to go to the API, 4.1.0 final, and we're going to add these in as well. It's very important to add the sources and the JavaDocs if you actually want to be able to read the JavaDocs later on. Right, so we'll go back a couple. We're going to the core impl. Again, we'll add the libraries, the sources, and the JavaDocs. Finally, we're going to add the UI pieces. So we're going to go to the RichFaces components UI. We're going to add it. We're going to add the sources. And the JavaDocs. And now finally the components and the sources and the JavaDocs. Now this should complete our library, and we'll notice once this gets accepted it shows that we created a valid library. So we'll hit OK, and our project will select RichFaces, and we'll hit Finish. We'll wait for the project to be created, and then we'll add some RichFaces components. In fact, I'm going to add a panel to the page, and then we'll deploy it to Glassfish 3.1.1 and prove that our RichFaces library that we just created actually is working. RichFaces is a great library and framework to use for doing visual development for your web pages. As you can see from here, we've also got ice faces and prime faces. Prime faces comes included with NetBeans. Ice faces I will do in a separate demonstration to show you how to add that library, but essentially it's the same thing that we just did using the RichFaces library, so we follow the same procedure. So the project is finishing up here. We'll wait for it to scan the libraries. This may take a minute or two for it to scan, because once it finishes scanning the libraries, it will allow us to actually do some code completion. This may take a little while since it's got to scan all of the jars that we just placed into the project, so we won't interfere with it while it finishes its scanning. We're almost done. About 73%. This is the longest part of the whole demo. I practiced this earlier, and it just takes a little while for this to scan. While we're waiting for that, we'll add some of the stuff that I want to put on the page, though, that has nothing to do with RichFaces. Okay, the scanning's completed, so we'll add in the RichFaces library. We'll call it Rich. And we'll see that it actually picked it up. So now our code completion is working. And we'll add a form. And we'll add a RichFaces component. How about a panel with a header? As you can see that it's doing the auto completion. A little formatting, and then we'll deploy our project, and it should read RichFaces 4. The original RichFaces 4 library was not quite as complete as the RichFaces 3.3 final, which was designed for JSF 1.2. This is a significant update and improvement over the original version that was released. The original version that was released, like I said, had some shortcomings. This was an attempt to make up for that. And it should come up in a second and give us our web page, which shows us that we successfully put RichFaces into our IDE. And there you have it, even including my correction that I made while it was deploying. And that concludes this demonstration. I hope you enjoy using RichFaces 4.1.0 Final with NetBeans IDE 7.1.